everybody. We are here. Myself, Kari. We've got Melissa, the Modern Mortician, down in Texas. We've got Lauren, Little Miss Funeral, out in New York, and just Kari up in Michigan. We always make fun because I have nothing, and I'm just.
I think that you should make shirts that say "Just Kari" and then sell them.
I'm
with Just Kari.
I feel like so many people would buy those. Like so many people.
What would Kari do? I'm gonna do my own little thing with that. So today we've pulled us together. We're all kind of from different coasts. We need like a West Coaster almost to give some good input on this too. We should pull in maybe for a future video, but we are discussing green burials, natural ways to go. Melissa is like the queen of all of this out there. If you follow her, if you dig into her Instagram, do you blog? Do you have like a bloggy?
No, I'm trying to, well, actually I have like a vlog, you could almost say, with the behind the scenes stuff that happens on Instagram, the Instagram stories.
Perfect. Yeah, you do so much on Instagram. Like it's crazy. I feel like way behind when it comes to Instagram, and Lauren's picking it up with
I'm trying to step up my game to like keep up with Melissa.
You're doing really well. I enjoy watching your story.
Yeah, and you're rocking the Let's Talk About Death shirt from Melissa, which is awesome. Yeah, very cool. And we'll put posts for all that stuff in the video link for you guys if you're interested in it. So today we're going to try to check out in our areas what we do for green burial or what's offered, and talk a little about our experiences with green burial or serious lack of experiences, because it's not a thing in our area yet, but it's coming. Everybody's asking about natural. Everybody's asking about simple. I want to be just buried out back, or I want to just simple service. And we'll look at maybe what that could look like in your areas. So I'm going to turn to, I think, Lauren first. I think you and I are the least experienced at this, and then we'll let Melissa just go to town and school us on what she knows. What do you have available in your area, Lauren?
So in my Western New York community, we currently have no green cemeteries whatsoever. There was talk, and when I say there was talk, I mean 8 years ago, about a local cemetery putting in a green section. And I was super excited about it. I was talking with the workers, and just nothing has ever come of it. From what I am still aware of, the cemetery still has that land. It's just they haven't done anything with it. The closest green cemetery to me, since I am in like the Buffalo area, is actually, I believe, if we go up north a little bit, Niagara Falls, Canada has a green cemetery, which is actually only about 10 or 15 minutes away from
But it's a different country.
But it's a different country. So to get a body would be impossible, because I'm certain we'd have to embalm them to get them over the border and everything like that. So it's non-existent here right now.
Do your cemeteries can you just bury a body not in a casket, just in a vault, or in like a bottomless vault?
So basically all the cemeteries in our area do require vaults, because there's no New York State law, but it's a requirement by the cemetery. There's very specific situations in which they will not require a vault, typically for religious purposes. Like there's one cemetery that has a large Muslim section, and in those they do not require a vault. A funny little side story, I'm doing a pre-arrangement currently for somebody who is Jewish, and our local Jewish cemetery requires vaults. Which I thought was a little different, because from my past experience with the Jewish faith, I thought that it was supposed to be a wooden casket directly touching the ground. Now our vault company, and I know Melissa has talked about this in different videos as well, our vault company can actually put a vault upside down so that the casket still touches the earth, for the cemeteries that do require some sort of a vault if a family so wished to. But that's kind of where we're at right now.
So very archaic compared to some areas of the country where, it's the total norm. We have green burials and everything. And I wonder sometimes if weather plays a factor.
Yeah, because we here because I'm from Buffalo and we are like known for our snow, we bury in the winter time. Our cemeteries all have the heavy backhoes and machinery to cut through that frost line. So if it's bad weather out, we don't have an excuse to not do a burial. Our cemeteries will bury. And we just had like our huge winter storm this past week, and if you watched my Instagram stories, I was talking about this during it. We actually had 2 burials that day, and the cemeteries did it. We could drive down the road. You couldn't see in front of you because the visibility was so bad, but the cemeteries were doing the burials. So I sometimes wonder too, if, like you were saying, weather's a factor. So.
And whether I don't know, but just thinking, because in both of our areas, we have kind of the same, we're in the
climate
line and things that maybe, I don't know, but there's areas up here that do have green burials. So like near me, the closest is about 45 minutes away. And I spoke to the guy that runs the cemetery there, and he said they've never, at the point I had talked to him, they've never buried in a shroud. It's always been in a cardboard box at minimum. So he said he's done cloth covered caskets, removing the hardware, just different things that are not. I said, so why aren't you doing a shroud? And he said, because it's too easy to drop the person when you're lowering them in with the straps. And I'm like, but that's kind of the point of the green burial, is that they're in the most basic, right into the ground, no embalming, no preparation, and you lower them in. Well, we just don't want to drop somebody, so we always have them buy a cardboard box. And I'm just like, that's really weird to me, because green burial to me means natural. And they also put like flat stones at the headstone, so there is like a marker. And to me, I'm like, well, if you're putting all these markers and you're burying them in a box, and how are you calling yourself green just because you don't allow embalming, I guess? So to me, it's a quasi green, I think, from my interpretation of, maybe it's the Hollywood version, since we don't have traditional green here. You see the woods where there's flowers and, everything's so pretty, and you can just wander amidst the hills, and there's people just buried, but you don't know quite where and stuff. So I think because we don't have it, we, even as funeral directors, have this dreamlike interpretation of what burial is.
I've never done.
Yeah, so I think we are in I've never done what would be considered, aside from Muslim, a green burial. And that was in sheets, not a shroud, which is not as, good. But so Melissa, this is your routine. I mean, this is your every day doing green burial. So tell from your perspective kind of what your traditional, and school us on this.
Well, in Texas, we're fortunate to have 2 designated natural burial parks in the area. One of them isn't currently accepting new burials at this time because they're going through change of ownership. But you can be buried there wrapped in a blanket, wrapped in a sheet, wrapped in a shroud, in a cardboard box. The cloth-covered caskets are frowned upon because there's a lot of plastics involved with that casket. And that's something that, when you go outside to the professionals, we as professionals are at a disadvantage knowing what we need to do. When I say we, I'm encompassing all of us, even though I know. Right. It doesn't do anybody any good if I don't tell you how to do this. Somebody needs to. So yeah, you can absolutely bury somebody in sheets as long as they're biodegradable, which means cotton or silk or wool. I mean, are you going to have wool sheets? Probably not, but you might have a wool blanket that you love. And it's really easy to do. And our industry is kind of scared of it the way they were of cremation when it became a big deal. Yeah. So if we're able to confidently handle this now, I see this as being a benefit for our industry, because we have the tools and the experience necessary to help these families achieve what they need to with a more natural form of position. So in saying that, we're really fortunate that we have these burial parks that are just designated for that. But the thing is, you can be anywhere in the United States and get a shades of green burial. And that's what I like to call it.
Great term. I like it.
Yeah.
50 Shades of Green.
You can go dark evergreen where, you know, you're like funeral at home, bathed at home, shrouded in grandma's blanket, laid to rest under the stars, GPS coordinates, no flat flagstone markers, nothing. Or you can be like light green, where you have a traditional funeral at a family-owned funeral home, but there's no embalming. Maybe it's a closed wooden casket, and then they get to the graveside, and everybody throws flowers in to line the bottom of the grave before the casket's lowered. And it could be a traditional cemetery that might, you know, have sections that require vault and things of that nature. But there's workarounds, just like flipping the vault upside down, like butter dishing it is the term. Or like in a cemetery before, I put the body down first, and then they had just the sidewalls of a vault that would go around it. And then they put down some dirt, and then they put down a layering on top of that. So.
Okay, so just that quasi. I do like picturing like this diagram, like a circular going in all the shades of green, and like what you can add or subtract to get around, or yeah, that's a great way to look at it. And I think even in our area, so I called one cemetery I know and asked them, and they said you would have to petition the board, because I had asked about turning the vault upside down, or then that was before like bottomless vaults were kind of being used in our area. Now we have those available, but they said, well, it's got to go before the board, and then the board has to vote, and they've got to decide if we'll allow the bottomless vault. And I'm like, so somebody dies, how long is it going to take between that and the board deciding? So Melissa, how do you have a flow for how many people are doing green burials, that you're stocking the shrouds, or do you order them pretty quickly and get them quickly, or how does that part of it work for funeral directors who are not versed at that part of it?
Well, I want to kind of go back to what you said about the shrouds versus the cotton sheets. Honestly, I think that either one is suitable. Some shrouds come with lowering straps already sewn into them, but I've seen those break at a graveside before. So just like, you know, you can't 100% trust a casket all the time. You can't 100% trust our lowering device equipment all the time. There's mechanical error. There's also human error.
Yeah.
There are websites where you can buy a shroud and have it sent to you within a week. I prefer to keep one in stock from Passages International, just because they're easy to get. They have all of theirs shipped, I believe, from overseas, so they have them all in stock here or in New Mexico. So I keep one in stock, and then have the conversation with the families about bringing their own material if they prefer to. So granted, that's not a sale on my behalf, but really, how much of a markup are you getting off of a $299 shroud?
Right.
I mean, it kind of gets ridiculous when you tell somebody this fabric is $600, and they're like,
Walmart sheet fire.
I tell people to go to Goodwill and look for 100% cotton, and we come up with some beautiful shrouds that way. Even families that had like tie-dye fabric brought it for shrouds before. So I say it's super easy to be prepared for a green or natural burial, or shades of green burial, because we have access to refrigeration and Amazon Prime.
Yeah. Good old Amazon, I tell you.
Yeah.
Pretty soon that drone will be able to drop a shroud right on your house, like so.
Yeah, they've got 1 hour delivery in Austin. I know, you know, you guys may not have that in some of y'all's towns.
Not quite.
I got 2-day Prime shipping, which I think is phenomenal right now.
So now, in Texas, do you have to go through a funeral home to do a burial? Okay. See, in Michigan we do, and I think New York is the same. Like,
correct.
We have to be involved for the paperwork and stuff. So we kind of have to be in the mix, and for whatever reason. But I think, like you said, if the green burial is embraced and then done in a good way, people aren't going to want to bypass the funeral home. Now they can embrace it as being part of that end of life experience and not somebody just trying to get money out of you and stuff, you know, as we're seeing, I think, in a lot of ways.
I've seen a lot of greenwashing going on, including with our industry magazines telling people how to charge more for this. And, you know, this isn't 1980 anymore. We have the internet, and people are going to be privy to those articles that get out there.
Right.
Especially when the, you know, younger generations are shopping for their boomer parents. So I think if we're prepared for this, yes, in Texas, families could do it on their own, but maybe 0.5% of the families I deal with want to try it on their own, and everybody else desperately wants your help and your guidance because they're lost in this. It's not like birthing a baby, you know, it's not natural at first.
Birthing a baby is not natural. Okay. Sorry, Daisy, bye.
But yeah,
I think that's a good perspective. You know, I think when people are not in the situation and they're looking at it, it's easy to say, well, I don't need the family, I'm going to do it myself, I'm going to save my money. Then all of a sudden you have a dead person in front of you and you're like, why are they turning that color, or what's coming out of their mouth, or what's going on? Like that, it's good to have somebody that can reassure you what's natural, kind of like in hospice, like what's going on, why are their feet changing colors, why is their breathing that way. It's nice to have someone walk along with you, you know, helping you kind of through all those, or tending to what you don't want to tend to, I guess. So yeah, how often are you finding families calling you kind of freaking out by the unknown that they're trying to do on their own, but then they're like, want to cling back onto you to be their helper?
not very many.
No, they're good.
I don't know if it's because I'm prepping them on what to expect. But I'd say probably the split is maybe 1 in 4.
Okay.
Want to 1 in 4 will want to keep the body at home maybe for a day. And in my experience, I don't have massively purging bodies that don't have that extra pressure from embalming. Most of the purge I've experienced in my career has been from embalmed bodies. So yeah, there's a little bit of purge on some bodies, but nothing like you've described, actually, Kari, with a home, thankfully.
Yeah. She
was a home funeral family.
But yeah.
Yeah. No, I kind of tell them what to expect if I've noticed any problems that they may need to be watching for, and then they have my cell phone number where they can reach me 24/7. I mean, that's part of the service that I provide, is being available to them, you know, no matter what. And they're getting that extra time with their loved one at home where they're comfortable, and they didn't have to have embalming for the public viewing or anything, and I'm just a phone call away.
Are you so let's look at the cemeteries for a second. Cost-wise, how is a green burial cemetery compared to a traditional burial cemetery cost-wise? And I know that's a huge loaded question because cemeteries are kind of all over the place, but if you can compare maybe 2 in your area that are sort of similar.
I would say they're about the same. So when you have the country cemeteries, you want the expectation around here is anywhere from $600 to $1,100 for one of the smaller country cemetery graves. We have a natural burial park that's $1,100. That's a meadow. We have another one that's part of the whole, maybe they'll get on board with the green trend, and they're $2,500. But it's also like, with that experience, you're getting what you pay for because it is a forest, you know, it's like walking through a forest, whereas the other one's like a meadow. So it varies, and it's important that people call around just like you would in a traditional burial.
Right. Look for where you want to be, and
yeah,
there goes the cost that's there, or you price shop it out.
Yeah.
Now, is there something in purchasing this space that they say this coordinate will not be reused, or is there have you seen any green burial that there's regeneration that they're planning for?
Not that I'm aware of at this time, especially in Texas. They're looking at those spots being just those person's spots.
Okay.
and not doing any interments above them or anything like that. Thankfully in Texas, we have massive expanses of land and we can do that.
Yes.
So we're not in a position where we're having to save a lot of land because we've got oodles of it.
See, that's interesting to me because I recently put out a video on my channel that was like the positives of traditional burial. And one person commented on it saying there are no positives. We're eventually going to run out of land and embalming and all this, blah, 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 blah. So I would almost think that as a green cemetery, there would be some sort of like, you know, something written down where in 200 years we'll reuse this spot or something like that.
No, the ones that I've dealt with have just, they've decided that once they're full, that's it. It's like a place people can come and visit and nature walk and different things like that. Austin is a great area for getting out and being in nature and being able to bury our dead in a place that the community would want to visit is a huge draw. Like dog walkers go out there. There's even talks of a Saturday morning yoga class in the Zen garden, you know, and different things like that. We're incorporating the community back into the cemetery. I mean, I love what LA has done, and I would like to see that in natural burial cemeteries where you get the community involved. Because I don't think enough of that is going on in our traditional cemeteries because they're worried about headstone damage or, you know, ground consistency.
Yeah.
But with a natural burial, really, you're not worried about falling into holes unless they were made by a groundhog or something. So might have to look out for snakes or something. But
now, do the green burial cemeteries around allow cremated remains to be buried there as well?
Yes, they do. You know, we've learned a lot from burying cremated remains at the Natural Burial Park. They turn into concrete. You put water with cremated remains and you technically have a block of concrete. That's why I'm so adamant in my opinion or my research into the biocerns and things of that nature is because I've sat across from that family that cried when the tree died because the concrete.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you can bury cremated remains. Yay.
Well, and we'll segue here on that for 1 second. So I shared with you ladies, an article was written near me and they had put in there about the bio urns. They didn't say it by name, but that was kind of where she had gotten her information, how you can have a green burial of cremated remains that will allow your body to grow into a tree. And it's such a misconception that we run into a lot. And cremated remains actually starve a plant or a tree of nutrients. And so it will kill unless you get this pH balance correct, which they say they have in the bio urns from whatever, the articles that I was reading yesterday. But these trees do not just grow from your cremated remains, and it sounds like are turning into concrete. I wonder if that's a temperature atmosphere type thing, you know, maybe because it's so much drier or something down there or hot. I wonder.
I've heard of it happening in other places where people open their box of cremated remains that they've opened prior, and maybe they're in a humid atmosphere and they go back in dad's block. I posted one of those things on Instagram, Brick Dad. I'm gonna make fun of her dad for becoming Brick Dad.
Oh my gosh.
What are things that, Melissa, you want to share specifically about green burial? That we
don't be afraid of it, please. As professionals, it is our job to be confident and exude that confidence to the family. So when they come to you and ask for something you've never done before, don't make this face. I'm hearing that people are making that face, and it's just like, stop it. You know, you've got the old guys that are shouting, don't touch embalmed bodies, and then you got the young kids that are like, don't embalm anybody. There's a happy medium. If we're all just in tune with what to do and how to react to these families, it's going to go a lot better. refrigeration is your friend. I promise you, refrigeration is your friend. I typically will not bathe the body before putting them into refrigeration in case we have to worry about, edema seeping out or little purge or urine or something. The bathing happens before the shrouding or the casketing. Sometimes the family's involved. If they're going to be involved, I pre-bathe the body before they ever get there, dry them off. So there's a little pre-work done too, set the features. These are all things that we do daily for our embalmed bodies. Why aren't we doing them for our unembalmed bodies? It's just respect. Like you hear funeral directors argue about whether they're going to set the features on a body that somebody's coming in for a 15-minute ID view. Take your 5 minutes and set the features, because this is that family's one shot at goodbye. And just because they didn't pay you for a full funeral doesn't mean you have the right to rob them of that goodbye. So
I have a question about that.
Fire away.
Setting the features. What do? You don't use eye caps then, or what do you use for the eyes? Do you just close the eyes and hope that they naturally stay? Put maybe a little stay cream on them. Well, stay cream probably. Yeah. What do you do?
Web roll is your best friend. Who makes that? Is it Dodge? Dodge. Mm-hmm. Send me some free web roll. I freaking love web roll. I love that stuff for natural burials. So yeah, very thin bit of cotton, maybe some Vaseline right along the line of closure. Those things are amazing. And yeah, you're going to have a little bit of deflation of the eyes, but if you're giving the family the proper expectation and telling them what the features will look like as death progresses, none of my families have kept the body for 5 days at home. Okay? We're aware of this. I would advise for no more than 24 if you're going to, help families do this. 48, it starts getting a little iffy depending on the body. 72, I've gone back and been let's just say, for the sake of professionalism, usually 24 hours is the best suggested time for the family, and we have access to refrigeration before and after that. So regarding on when they want to have that vigil, work it out.
I might mute you, Lauren. Would that be okay?
Yes.
Okay. I just realized, hey, I could mute. That might be good.
That would be fabulous.
Okay.
Because she's just not having any of this.
I'm going to have Melissa answer that again and mute you that way, because I think that's such good information. So you asked about web roll, and I can cut in the middle of that part. Why don't you start down the 24-hour part, maybe, Melissa, again?
All right, hang on just a second. Okay. So what part again?
Where you talked about web roll. I think we could hear that okay.
All right.
And then even if you want to talk mouth closure, I mean, do you
okay.
Sure.
So what I do.
Yeah,
basically.
Talk about setting the features and maybe how long somebody should have them at home, and go from
Okay.
Yeah.
So web roll really is your best friend when it comes to setting features or caring for a body that's elected. The family is elected not to embalm the body. A little bit of Vaseline along the lower line of line of eye closure, along with a little bit of web roll underneath the eyelid, will help hold it down. And if you're setting the proper expectation with the family for the eyes to deflate or the mouth to open a little bit, it's not something that freaks them out, because they're expecting it. And most times it doesn't happen with the way that I do the setting of the features. I think it's important that we as professionals go into this confident, because this is our job to make it easier on families. Just like setting the features on a 15-minute ID view, a lot of guys are like, I don't want to do that. They didn't pay for their visitation. I'm not going to do that. This is our job. You get one shot and one goodbye for these families, and take 5 minutes out of your day to do what you need to do to let them see their loved one one more time, even if it is for just the free 15-minute ID view.